I agreed to stay as roommates, not knowing how badly she'd regret that decision. I thought I was about to hear, "We need to talk." What I didn't expect was, "I'm not in love with you anymore, but I still want to live together." She said it calmly, like she was asking to rearrange furniture. No tears, no anger, just a quiet request that would completely dismantle my life. And the worst part? I agreed. I'm going to start this by saying something I didn't understand back then. You don't always lose someone all at once. Sometimes you lose them slowly, while they're still sleeping in the same bed. My name's Evan, I'm 29, and at the time this started, I had been with my girlfriend Lauren for just over 4 years. We met in our mid-20s, moved in together after a year, and for a long time I genuinely believed we were building towards something permanent. We shared an apartment in a quiet part of Denver. Nothing fancy, second-floor unit, beige carpet, thin walls, but it felt like home because she was there. Or at least I thought it did. Looking back now, the warning signs were obvious. At the time, I ignored every single one. Lauren had grown distant in small, reasonable ways at first. She worked longer hours. She stopped texting during the day. Date nights became maybe next week. When I asked if something was wrong, she'd smile and say she was just tired. So I compensated. Cooked more, cleaned more, did her laundry without being asked, ran errands, paid more than my share of the bills when money was tight for her. I told myself this was what good partners did. What I didn't realize was that I was slowly turning myself into something else entirely. Convenience. The conversation happened on a Tuesday night. Ordinary. Forgettable if you didn't know it was about to become a dividing line in my life. We were sitting on opposite ends of the couch. A show played in the background, neither of us watching it. She muted the TV, took a breath, and said my name the way people do when they've already rehearsed what comes next. "Evan, I've been thinking a lot." I nodded. My stomach tightened. She didn't look at me when she said it. "I don't think I'm in love with you anymore." There it was. I remember waiting for the rest of the sentence, for the explanation, for the apology, for something to make it hurt less. Instead, she continued, "But I still care about you, and I don't want things to change too much. I think we work really well together. I just don't feel the same romantically." I stared at her, trying to understand the shape of what she was saying. "So, you want to break up?" She hesitated. "I don't want to move out, or have you move out. We're good roommates, best friends even. I just don't want the pressure of being in a relationship right now." I felt like the floor had tilted. She was asking to keep the benefits of my presence without the responsibility of choosing me. I should have said no. I should have stood up and walked out. Instead, I asked the most humiliating question of my life. "Is there someone else?" She shook her head quickly. "No, this isn't about that. This is about me." That sentence, "this is about me," became her shield for everything that followed. We sat in silence for a long time. I don't remember what I said exactly, just that I felt desperate not to lose her entirely. The idea of waking up in an empty apartment terrified me more than the idea of being unwanted. So when she said, "We don't have to decide everything tonight," I nodded. When she said, "We can just see how things go," I agreed. And when she said, "I hope you're okay with this," I told her I was. That night, we slept in the same bed. She turned away from me. I stared at the ceiling until morning. The next few days were surreal. Nothing had officially ended, but nothing was the same. She stopped touching me altogether. No casual hand on the arm. No leaning into me on the couch. No goodnight kisses. But she still expected everything else. She still wanted dinner ready when she got home late. Still wanted me to listen to her vent about work. Still wanted the apartment clean, the groceries stocked, the bills organized. And I did all of it, because some part of me believed that if I proved how valuable I was, she'd remember why she loved me. What actually happened was the opposite. She got more comfortable, more relaxed, lighter even. It was like a weight had been lifted for her. For me, every day felt heavier. I started noticing how often she talked about her coworkers, how she dressed nicer on days she went out with friends but stayed in sweatpants around me, how she stopped asking about my day entirely. One night, about 2 weeks after the talk, I overheard her on the phone in the bedroom, laughing in a way I hadn't heard in months. Something inside me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet click. That was the night I realized something important. She hadn't asked to live together because she loved me. She asked because it was comfortable. And I was the comfort. I didn't confront her. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. Instead, I made a decision. If she wanted a roommate, I would be the best roommate she'd ever had. Just not the boyfriend she was used to. The shift didn't happen overnight. That's what people imagine when they hear stories like this. That I woke up one morning a completely different man, emotionally detached and cold. The truth is quieter than that. More deliberate. I didn't announce anything. I didn't make a speech. I didn't even fully understand what I was doing at first. I just stopped. Stopped anticipating her needs. Stopped filling in the silence. Stopped trying to earn something she had already decided not to give. The first thing I stopped doing was cooking for her. Not out of spite. Not dramatically. I just cooked for myself. The next evening, I made a simple dinner: chicken, rice, vegetables. Enough for one. I ate at the small kitchen table instead of the couch like we used to. She came home late, kicked off her shoes, and froze when she saw the empty stove. "You already ate?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. I was hungry. She blinked, clearly recalibrating. "Oh, okay." She ordered takeout that night. I heard the delivery guy at the door. She didn't offer me any. That was fine. Over the next week, I quietly redrew the boundaries of my life. I did my own laundry, cleaned my own dishes, bought my own groceries and only my groceries. When she mentioned we were out of paper towels, I said, "I haven't used the last ones." When she asked if I could pick something up on my way home, I said, "I already ran my errands." Not rude, not angry, just factual. I was polite, calm, consistent. The irony was that I actually became easier to live with. No arguments, no emotional pressure, no heavy conversations. I smiled more because I was no longer constantly bracing for rejection. I spent more time out of the apartment, started going to the gym again, reconnected with friends I'd slowly drifted away from. Lauren noticed. At first, she seemed relieved. This, I think, was the arrangement she'd wanted all along. Emotional distance with practical stability. A roommate who paid bills on time and didn't make things uncomfortable. But comfort has a way of turning into confusion. One night, she stood in the doorway of my room. My room now, not our shared space. "You've been different lately," she said. I looked up from my laptop. "Different how?" "I don't know," she shrugged. "Quieter, but also happier?" "I am," I said honestly. She nodded slowly, like she wasn't sure how to respond to that. "Good," she said after a moment. "That's good." But something in her voice didn't match the words. A few days later, she asked if I wanted to watch a movie together. I agreed. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, the space between us noticeable but not uncomfortable. Halfway through, she leaned over and rested her feet on my leg. It was casual, familiar, automatic. And for the first time since the breakup that wasn't a breakup, I gently moved. "Hey," I said quietly, not looking at her. "Let's keep things roommate level." She stiffened. "Oh, sorry," she said, pulling her feet back. "I didn't mean anything by it." "I know." She didn't try again. That was the moment the balance shifted. She had assumed the emotional withdrawal only went one way, that she could step back from intimacy while still leaning on me when it suited her. She hadn't expected me to do the same. The next change was more noticeable. I stopped being available. Not busy in a dramatic way, just occupied. When she wanted to vent about work, I listened politely, then excused myself. When she asked if I could help her think through a problem, I said, "I'm sure you'll figure it out." When she hinted at doing things together, like old times, I smiled and said, "I've got plans." None of that was a lie. My life had gotten fuller the moment I stopped centering it around her. I signed up for a climbing gym, Started cooking meals I actually liked instead of what she preferred. Spent weekends out of town with friends. I was becoming a person again instead of a supporting role. She started noticing the small things first. That I dressed better. That I was gone more often. That my mood didn't revolve around hers anymore. One night, she commented on it directly. "You don't really ask about my day anymore," she said, trying to sound casual. "You don't ask about mine either," I replied gently. She opened her mouth, then closed it. "I guess I didn't realize that," she admitted. I nodded. "That happens." The air between us grew unsettled. Not hostile, just unfamiliar. The turning point came about a month into this new dynamic. Lauren came home visibly stressed. She dropped her bag by the door, sighed loudly, and leaned against the counter. "Can we talk?" she asked. "Sure," I said. She launched into a long story about work. Deadlines, pressure, feeling underappreciated. Halfway through, she paused, waiting for me to reassure her the way I always had. I didn't. I listened. I nodded. I didn't jump in to fix it. When she finished, she exhaled. "So, what do you think?" "I think that sounds tough," I said. "I hope it works out." That was it. She stared at me like I'd spoken another language. "That's all?" she asked. "What else were you looking for?" "I don't know," she said slowly. "You used to help more." I met her eyes, calm and steady. "You said you didn't want the relationship part anymore. That was a big part of it." Silence stretched between us. "I didn't mean I wanted you to stop caring," she said. "I didn't stop caring," I replied. "I just stopped acting like your partner." That night, she cried in her room. I heard it through the wall. And for the first time, I didn't rush to comfort her. Not because I didn't care, but because it wasn't my role anymore. Something fundamental changed after that. She became more attentive, started asking where I was going, who I was seeing, whether I'd be home for dinner. I answered honestly without elaboration. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the power dynamic reversed. She had wanted distance without consequence. What she got instead was space with absence. And absence has a way of revealing what presence once provided. By the end of that month, Lauren wasn't just noticing what I'd stopped doing. She was beginning to feel it. There's a strange moment that happens when someone stops needing you. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's the quiet realization that you don't occupy the same space in their life anymore, and they don't know how to get it back. That moment crept up on Lauren slowly. First, she tried to ignore it. She told herself nothing had really changed. We were still living together, still sharing space, still talking technically, but the rhythm was gone. The ease, the invisible work I used to do without being asked. And once you lose something invisible, it's hard to explain why everything suddenly feels harder. It started with the mornings. I used to wake up before her, make coffee, leave a mug on the counter with just the right amount of cream. I stopped doing that. I made my coffee and took it into my room. The first time she noticed, she stood in the kitchen holding an empty mug. "Oh," she said, "no coffee today? I didn't know you wanted any," I replied genuinely. She laughed awkwardly. "I mean, you always make it." "I used to," I said. She didn't respond. Then came the weekends. I stopped planning around her schedule. If I wanted to go somewhere, I went. If I had plans, I didn't cancel them because she was bored or lonely. One Saturday afternoon, she asked, "Do you want to run errands together?" I shook my head. "I already went." She frowned. "Since when?" "Since we're roommates," I said lightly. She looked down at her phone, suddenly very interested in something on the screen. The apartment began to feel different to her. Quieter, less forgiving. Little inconveniences piled up. When the trash overflowed, it stayed that way until she took it out. When her favorite snacks disappeared from the pantry, no one replaced them. When she had a rough day, there was no one anticipating her mood. She started hovering. Not obviously, just nearby. She'd sit in the living room when I was there instead of going to her room. She'd linger in the kitchen while I cooked, commenting on what I was making. "That smells good," she'd say. Thanks, I'd reply. She'd wait like she expected an invitation. I didn't offer one. One night, she asked if I wanted to split a bottle of wine. I considered it for a moment, then shook my head. I've got an early morning. Oh, she said, clearly disappointed. Okay. She drank alone. I could see the shift happening in real time. She started dressing nicer around the apartment, wearing makeup she hadn't touched in months, laughing louder when she talked, asking my opinion about things she'd never cared about before. Do you think this jacket looks okay on me? She asked one evening. I glanced up. Yeah, looks fine. That answer used to earn me a playful shove or a sarcastic comment. This time it earned silence. She was searching for reassurance, validation, proof that she still mattered in the way she used to. And for the first time, I wasn't giving it to her on demand. The real crack in the illusion came during a small argument. She had had a long day and snapped at me over something trivial. Dishes in the sink, I think. A month earlier, I would have apologized just to keep the peace. This time, I didn't. Hey, I said calmly. There's no reason to talk to me like that. She stared at me, stunned. I didn't mean. I know, I said. But I'm not your emotional punching bag anymore. That sentence hit harder than I expected. She went quiet, then defensive. You're acting like I'm the bad guy here. I'm not, I replied. I'm just acting like someone with boundaries. She scoffed. So now you're punishing me? I shook my head. I'm adjusting. She walked away angry, but beneath the anger was something else. Fear. That night I heard her pacing, opening and closing doors, making noise she didn't need to make. She wanted me to notice her discomfort. I did. I just didn't fix it. A few days later, she tried a different approach. She knocked on my door. Do you have a minute? She asked. I nodded and stepped into the hallway. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed. I feel like we're drifting. I kept my voice even. You asked for that. I didn't mean like this, she said. What did you mean then? She hesitated. I thought we could still be close. We are, I said. Just not in the same way. That's not fair, she snapped. I met her gaze. Neither was asking me to stay while telling me you didn't love me. Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't think you'd let go, she whispered, and there it was. She hadn't expected me to choose myself. She'd assumed I'd linger in emotional limbo, grateful for scraps of closeness. She'd underestimated how quickly clarity can replace hope when hope is no longer rewarded. I'm not letting go, I said softly. I already did. She wiped her eyes, frustrated. So what, you're just done? I'm done pretending, I replied. From that moment on, everything changed. She started coming home earlier, started asking about my plans in advance, started offering to cook. For me, I accepted the food, not the implication. By the end of that week, the tension in the apartment was thick enough to touch. She was losing something she hadn't realized she relied on, and she could feel it slipping through her fingers. People like to say you don't know what you have until it's gone. What they don't tell you is that sometimes it isn't fully gone yet. It's just no longer yours. That's where Lauren found herself. She hadn't lost me completely. I was still there, still living in the same apartment, still speaking to her politely, still reliable. But the version of me she had grown used to, the emotional safety net, the steady reassurance, the man who would bend himself into whatever shape she needed, that guy was gone. And she could feel it. The first attempt to pull me back was subtle. She started being nice, not just polite, intentionally kind. Compliments slipped into conversations. She laughed at my jokes again. She asked about my day and waited for the answer. One evening, she cooked dinner, a full meal, my favorite from memory. She set a plate in front of me and smiled. I thought you'd like this. I do, I said. Thank you. She lingered, standing across from me like she was expecting something more. You're welcome, she said slowly. I cleaned my plate. I thanked her again. I didn't read into it. That frustrated her. The next step was nostalgia. Do you remember that trip we took to Oregon? she asked one night. That little cabin by the lake? Yeah, I said. That was a good trip. She smiled softly. We were really happy then. I agreed. She waited. I didn't add anything else. She sighed, clearly irritated. You're being so neutral lately. I'm being honest, I replied. Then came the emotional bids. She'd talk about feeling lost, confused, unsure of what she wanted. She framed everything as vulnerability, hoping it would trigger the instinct I used to have, to fix, to reassure, to stay. I don't know if I made a mistake, she said one night, voice trembling. I looked at her. About what? About us. I took a breath. That's something you have to figure out. She frowned. Don't you care? I do, I said. But I'm not responsible for your clarity anymore. That was when the panic set in. The shift from curiosity to urgency was obvious. She started asking questions she'd never asked before. Are you seeing someone? Why are you out so much lately? You've changed. What happened? I answered calmly, truthfully. No, I've got friends. I stopped waiting. That last one hit her hard. She started finding excuses to touch me, brushing past me in the hallway, sitting closer on the couch, resting her hand on my arm when she laughed. Each time I gently moved away. Please don't do that, I said quietly one evening. Her face crumpled. I just miss you, she whispered. I miss who I used to be too, I replied. But I can't go back to that. That was the night she finally said it. I think I want to try again. The words hung in the air, heavy and uncertain. I didn't respond right away. She rushed on. I've been thinking a lot. About us. About what we had. I think I got scared and pushed you away. And now I realize I might have. Lauren, I interrupted gently. Why now? She hesitated. What do you mean? Why didn't you want to try when I was still choosing you every day? Tears welled up in her eyes. I didn't think you'd stop. There it was again. Not I didn't realize I loved you. Not I was wrong about us. Just, I didn't think there would be consequences. I can't do this halfway, I said. And I won't chase someone who already walked away. She started crying openly then. I don't want to lose you, she said, voice breaking. You already did, I replied softly. That was the moment the roles fully reversed. She started begging, not dramatically, not yet, but persistently. She asked if we could go to counseling, if we could take things slow, if I could just give her time. I didn't say no. I just didn't say yes. I'm not in the same place anymore, I told her. And I don't know if I ever will be again. That uncertainty terrified her. She escalated. She started leaving notes on the counter, texting me late at night, asking if I could sleep in her room just to talk. I declined. Not out of cruelty, out of self-respect. And here's the thing she didn't understand. By the time someone realizes your absence hurts, you've usually already learned how peaceful it feels. The final moment of part 4 came quietly. One night, as I was heading out, she stopped me at the door. Are you happy? She asked. I paused, then nodded. Yeah, I really am. She looked like that answer hurt more than anything else I'd said, because it meant I didn't need her pain to justify my peace. And that was something she couldn't undo. The funny thing about emotional clarity is that it creates space. Not just space in your schedule, but space in your head. Space where anxiety used to live. Space where self-doubt used to echo. Space where you can finally hear yourself think. That space is where Maya showed up. I didn't meet her in some dramatic, cinematic way. No sparks flying across the room. No slow-motion moment. We met the most ordinary way possible, through a mutual friend at a small get-together I almost didn't go to. If this had been 2 months earlier, I would have stayed home. I would have worried about Lauren being alone. I would have felt guilty for leaving. But this time, I just went. Maya was sitting at the kitchen island, laughing with someone about a story I'd missed the beginning of. She had an easy presence, not loud, not performative. When she smiled at me, it wasn't searching. It wasn't evaluating. It was just warm. We talked casually at first. Nothing heavy. Music. work, travel. She asked questions and actually waited for the answers. When I spoke, she listened like what I was saying mattered. I remember thinking how strange that felt. Not exciting, not intoxicating, peaceful. I didn't flirt. I didn't overshare. I didn't compare her to Lauren. I just enjoyed the conversation for what it was. When I left that night, she said, "It was really nice meeting you." I meant it when I said, "You too." That should have been the end of it. But a few days later, she followed me on social media. We exchanged a few messages. Light, friendly, no pressure. I didn't tell Lauren. Not because I was hiding anything, but because it wasn't her business. That alone felt like a milestone. Over the next couple of weeks, Maya and I talked more. Slowly, naturally. She never pushed, never demanded, never hinted that I owed her attention. And that's when it hit me. I had spent so long trying to prove my worth that I forgot what it felt like to be welcomed. The contrast became impossible to ignore. At home, Lauren was trying harder than ever. She'd ask if I wanted to eat together, offer to do things like old times, drop comments like, "I miss us," or "We were good together, weren't we?" I didn't argue. I didn't reassure. I just stayed consistent. Meanwhile, Maya noticed the small things. She noticed when I was tired. She thanked me when I showed up. She never assumed access to my time or energy. One evening, after a long day, she texted, "You don't have to reply tonight. Just wanted to say I hope you're having a good evening." I stared at that message longer than I probably should have. No expectations, no entitlement, no pressure. I replied when I was ready. When Maya and I eventually grabbed coffee, it didn't feel like a test. It felt like two people choosing to be present. She didn't ask about my past right away. She didn't pry. When I eventually told her I was in the middle of disentangling from a long relationship, she didn't flinch. "Thank you for being honest," she said. "Just tell me what pace feels right for you." No one had asked me that in years. At home, Lauren could sense something had changed. Not because I was distant, I had been distant for a while, but because I was lighter, happier. One night, she confronted me. "You're seeing someone, aren't you?" I met her eyes. "I'm getting to know someone." Her face drained of color. "So it's like that," she said quietly. "It's not about you," I replied. "It's about me not waiting anymore." She sat down, hands shaking. "I told you I wanted to try again." "I know," I said, "and I believe you meant it." She looked up sharply. "Then why isn't that enough?" Because I had already learned what it felt like to be chosen without conditions. Because love shouldn't start when you feel yourself losing control. Because someone else saw my value without needing to miss it first. "I don't want to be someone you come back to," I said gently. "I want to be someone you don't leave." That was the night she cried harder than I'd ever seen. And for the first time, I didn't feel responsible for fixing it. Because sometimes growth looks like walking forward, even when someone behind you finally realizes what they lost. Begging doesn't always look the way people imagine it. It's not always someone on their knees, crying, making dramatic promises. Sometimes it's quieter than that, more desperate, more exhausting. Lauren didn't beg all at once. She unraveled. After I told her I was getting to know someone else, the apartment became a pressure cooker. Every interaction felt loaded. Every silence felt intentional. She stopped pretending she was okay. One night, she waited for me in the living room, sitting upright on the couch like she'd been there for a while. "We need to talk," she said. I nodded and sat across from her, keeping space between us. "I can't do this anymore," she said, voice trembling. "I can't watch you move on while I'm still here." "I understand," I replied. "That's why I think we should start talking about living separately." Her eyes widened in panic. "No," she said quickly. "That's not what I meant. I meant, I want us. I want you." I didn't interrupt her this time. She leaned forward, hands clenched together. "I know I hurt you. I know I took you for granted. But I'm ready now. I'll do whatever it takes. Therapy, counseling. I'll change. I swear." I took a slow breath. "Lauren," I said gently, You're offering effort now because you're afraid, not because you're sure. That's not fair, she snapped. People get scared when they realize what they're about to lose. I know, I said. I did too. Back when you told me you didn't love me anymore. Her face crumpled. I didn't mean it like that. But you meant it enough to say it, I replied. She stood up, pacing. I was confused. I thought space would help. I didn't think you'd disappear. I didn't disappear, I said. I stayed. I just stopped shrinking. That was when the begging really started. She cried openly. She apologized repeatedly. She rewrote the past, reframed her words, minimized her certainty back then. She told me she'd been depressed, burned out, lost. She said she didn't know how much I meant to her until I stopped giving her everything for free. And that sentence, until you stopped giving me everything, was the truth she couldn't see. I don't want to lose you forever, she said through tears. I looked at her for a long moment before answering. I already lost you once, I said quietly. I just didn't know it yet. She dropped back onto the couch, defeated. So that's it? She asked. You're choosing her? I shook my head. I'm choosing myself. That answer broke something in her. Over the next few days, she cycled through every emotion imaginable. Anger, guilt, hope, desperation. One moment she'd accuse me of abandoning her. The next, she'd beg me to stay just a little longer. She asked if we could have one more date, one more weekend, one more chance. Every request came with the same weight. Please don't make this final. But it already was. The final conversation happened on a Sunday morning. She knocked on my door, eyes red, voice hoarse. I can't sleep, she said. Can we talk? We sat at the kitchen table, the same place where we used to plan our lives together. I need to know, she said. Is there anything I could say or do that would make you stay? I thought about it honestly. No, I said. She closed her eyes. I wish you'd fought harder, she whispered. I felt a tightness in my chest, but not guilt. I did, I said. You just didn't notice until I stopped. She didn't respond. A week later, I signed a lease on a new place. When I told her I was moving out, she didn't argue. She just nodded, like she'd finally accepted what had been happening all along. The night before I left, she stood in the doorway of the apartment. I really did love you, she said. I believe you, I replied, just not in the way I needed. She watched silently as I carried the last box to my car. I didn't look back, because some goodbyes aren't about anger. They're about clarity. People ask me sometimes if I regret how it ended. They usually ask it gently, like they're handling something fragile, like I might break if they press too hard. The truth is, I don't. But it took me a while to understand why. When I moved into my new place, the silence felt different than I expected. It wasn't lonely. It wasn't heavy. It was clean, like a room after you open the windows for the first time in years. No tension in the air. No emotional math. No waiting to see which version of someone I'd get that day. Just peace. Maya helped me move in. Not because I asked, because she offered. She didn't direct. She didn't criticize. She handed me boxes, made jokes, and ordered pizza when we were too tired to think. At one point, she looked around the half-unpacked apartment and smiled. This already feels like you, she said. No one had ever said that to me before. Being with Maya didn't feel like proving anything. I didn't have to earn affection by being useful. I didn't have to perform stability or suppress needs to keep the peace. If I was tired, I said so. If I needed space, I took it. If I showed up, it was because I wanted to, not because I was afraid of what would happen if I didn't. And that was the biggest difference. With Lauren, love had slowly turned into obligation. With Maya, love felt like choice. A few weeks after I moved out, Lauren texted me. Nothing dramatic, no begging, just a simple message. I hope you're doing well. I think about you sometimes. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I typed back. I hope you are too. Take care. And that was it. No reopening wounds. No late-night conversations. No nostalgia traps. Because closure isn't always a final conversation. Sometimes it's realizing you no longer need one. Looking back now, I don't feel anger toward Lauren. I don't wish her harm. I genuinely hope she learned something from what happened. But I also understand something I didn't before. Someone realizing your value after you detach isn't love. It's loss response. And you don't rebuild your future on someone else's panic. What I learned through all of this is simple, but it took me years to internalize. If someone tells you they don't love you anymore, believe them. If someone wants the benefits of your presence without choosing you, step back. And if someone only fights for you when they feel you slipping away, ask yourself why they were comfortable letting go in the first place. I didn't win because I found someone better. I won because I stopped accepting less than I deserved. The moment I stopped doing everything for someone who no longer chose me, I made room for someone who did, and I've never looked back since.